Hey everybody, what is going on? Heatsoul here with another Master Duel video for you. So in today's video, as we have already covered the profile for Mathmech and shown some example games, now I want to show you some combos with Mathmech. This is going to be our combo guide for the new Mathmech deck now that we have Circular. And Circular is going to make a whole lot of combos possible. We're going to quickly realize as we start going over the various plays you can make with this deck, just how important Circular is to pretty much every single one of them. There are plays that you can make without Circular, but the vast majority of these are going to be utilizing this monster. That's why we have so many search options for it, like 3 Cynet Mining and 2 Small World. Would honestly play a third if we had room for it as well in this particular build. But all the same, yeah, we're going to be taking a look at those combos here and talking a little bit about how each of them works and how these plays kind of build off one of another. Mathmech is one of those kind of combo decks where, in my mind, and I think most combo decks tend to be like this, if you can learn some of like the core or base lines, then it makes all the other plays a lot easier to find from there on out, because the combos actually play fairly similarly. So we're going to be seeing some examples of that. I'm going to start by showing off some of the 1-card combos, and I'll show some 2-card combos after that. Because this deck actually has a lot of combos that it can make with only 1 or 2 cards, it also has a lot of room for a good amount of disruption as well, which is another one of the kind of pros to this style of combo deck. One thing I will say is that a lot of our combos are going to end on the follow-up of Superfactorial, and for that reason, I talked about this in the deck profile, we're playing Ghost Spell and Haunted Mansion as some of our tech disruption of choice, because this will not only potentially disrupt some of our opponent's plays as well, infamously branded in red among many other cards. But on top of that, our plays, particularly our Mathmech Superfactorial, is super susceptible to getting hit by Call by the Grave and also DD Crow type effects. So Ghost Spell acts as much as protection in this deck as it does disruption. So even though it's not really part of any of the combos, I did want to make mention of that this is kind of how you use this card in this particular deck to protect your combos. So, of course, we're also playing Callbys and Crossout for that as well, etc., etc. This deck is actually very resilient to disruption as well. You'll find that as you're doing these combos and playing them out in real games, you're often able to have follow-up plays even as a result of just the plays you're making. Just because there's a lot of different directions and angles you can go with your searches and all that stuff. So in any case, let's just go ahead and start talking about some of these plays you can make. Alright, so Mathmech Circular is actually so powerful of a card that there's multiple 1-card combos you can do. Well, multiple different lines you can do with just Mathmech Circular. Each line kind of plays around different cards. The 2 main lines that I like to use are, there's one that plays around Nibiru, there's another that plays around Valor, Ash, and Imperm. I'll show you the one that plays around Nibiru first. This is actually the one that I use a little bit less often. I'm going to start, of course, by using the Cynet Mining to just go ahead and grab my Mathmech Circular here. Now, actually, because I have Parallel Exceed in my hand, I could do even more plays, but as always with these combo guides, I'm just going to show, assuming that I don't have anything else in hand, right? Let's just assume that I don't have this Parallel Exceed. Let's say it's a Ghost Spell or something like that. Anyway, so I'm going to start by activating my Mathmech Circular's effect. And I'm going to send Mathmech Sigma to the graveyard. This is pretty much the one you're going to send just about every single time. It's really only on a follow-up play I would send something else, but now I get to summon the Sigma back from the graveyard because we don't control a monster in our extra monster zones. And then we'll activate the Mathmech Circular effect. Now, which spell or trap card you add with Circular is actually going to change which of the 1-card combo lines you go for. For this combo line, again, this is the one that plays better around Nibiru. We're going to add the Mathmech Superfactorial to our hand first. Alright, from here I'm actually going to go for an Exceed summon using the Circular and the Sigma to go for the Primathmech Alembertain. And of course I will activate the Alembertain effect to add a Mathmech card. Now since I haven't used my normal summon yet, I'm going to detach both of my materials to add a Mathmech Diameter from my deck to my hand. Also, even though Sigma brought itself back by its own effect and would normally banish when it leaves the field, because I use it for an Exceeds monster, it actually gets to go back to the graveyard, which is very nice. It's actually going to be crucial in order to make sure that we get our 3 material set up for the Superfactorial here. So Now I'm going to normal summon my Mathmech Diameter, activating the effect to bring back either of my Mathmech monsters. Doesn't really matter which one. I'll just get Circular here. Alright, and now I'm going to do some Link summoning. I'm going to go into Link Disciple with one of my Mathmechs. And then with the other Mathmech that I brought back, I'm going to go into Link Devotee. I'll throw that in that zone right over there. Now, normally the play here is to, sack Link Devotee with Link Disciple's effect in order to get your tokens and your draw. But we can actually do a little bit better than that, because Alembertain can sack any monster, or tribute any monster to bring back a Mathmech monster. I'm actually going to use its effect to tribute the Link Devotee. And then from there, I don't think it really matters which one we get back here, so I'm just going to get Circular. We still get the Devotee's effect because this co-linked card was tributed. It wasn't by Disciple's effect, but it was still co-linked and it was still tributed. So I'm going to grab my tokens here. Now keep in mind we can't Link summon Link 3 or higher for the rest of this turn, but that's not really going to affect us really at all here because of the way the deck is set up. Now we're going to use a token and a Link Disciple in order to go into Cyberse Wicckid. And then now from here, we can go into our... I'm just trying to think, do we go into IP Masquerena just yet? Ooh, I'm actually struggling to remember off the top of my head, because I actually don't normally... Like I said, I don't normally do this combo line, because I think it's a little better to play around Imperm and Valor and... what's the other one? Ash, than the Nibiru here. But let's see, at this stage... Like, I know we set up we add the Wicckid with the Diameter. We just need to send the Circular to the graveyard. So I guess we could just go for IP Masquerena here. Yeah, we go for IP Masquerena here. That's right, because if you try to go for Linguriboh here, you can't actually link up into a Heatsoul with Linguriboh, so... you also can't do that anyway because Linguriboh is dark and Heatsoul needs multiple different attributes. So we'll get Cyberse Wicckid's effect. Just make sure you're not banishing one of the effect monsters. Just banish either Link Disciple or Devotee. We don't need those anymore in our graveyard. But we very much need all those Mathmech monsters in our graveyard. So we get to add a Diameter for the follow-up turn. And then we get to set this card before passing over to our opponent. And that is your first turn 1 combo. But to really illustrate what all it lets you do, I'm actually going to go ahead and go to the opponent's turn so I can show you the follow-up play. Alright, now the opponent has set a couple of cards, but we're going to make sure that we get a lot of effects in on their turn, a lot more than they just did there. So I'm going to use IP Masquerena with Alembertain in order to make the Heatsoul. In an actual match, like not against, Dragon Army here, you might want to set your toggle to on, so that way you can do this right at the start of their main phase, and you get access to the Heatsoul draw as early as possible. We actually get another ad with Cyberse Wicckid here, so you actually get to, set up multiple stuff in your hand. Not that you usually really need to, but, we get to add the Sigma here. And then we also get a draw off of Heatsoul, which will potentially allow us to draw some more disruption. But more than that, we also get to use our Mathmech Superfactorial. I talked about in the deck profile, Superfactorial is this deck's Tri-Brigade Revolt, and in a lot of ways, it's actually even better. I would also typically, try to set this up as early in the turn. Well, not necessarily as early in the turn as possible, because we can actually get a lot of disruptions with it. Because our opponent has a spell and a trap, or spell/trap and a monster card, we get to hit multiple cards with our Alembertain here. Or not Alembertain, sorry, Laplacian, the other Exceed monster. So we get to detach all 3 materials in this case. We get to send a card from their hand to the graveyard, the monster to their graveyard, a spell or trap card to the graveyard, and because the Laplacian was summoned using Diameter's effect, we even had another Omni on top of that for that turn as well. So, yeah, that turn 1 board might look a little weird. It might be like, oh, well, why, why would you go out of your way to end on a board like that? It looks a little weak, but as you can see, the real power of that move was in the follow-up on the opponent's turn. We got to send 2 of their cards from the field to the graveyard, send a card from their hand to the deck, or from their hand to the graveyard. We had an Omni Negate on top of that, and we got multiple draws off of or rather a draw off of the Heatsoul during the opponent's turn. So that is what all Mathmech likes to set up here. But as I mentioned, there are actually other ways you can make a 1-card combo with Circular that I actually tend to prefer to play it that way. So Oh, and for those who are wondering, like, how does that line play around Nibiru specifically? Because I should have touched on that, I didn't. The way it plays around Nibiru is it sets up all 3 of your Mathmech monsters in graveyard, as well as the Superfactorial in hand within the 5 summons. So even if you get Nibiru on summon number 5, you'll still have the Superfactorial in hand, and all 3 of these in graveyard, which is really the main thing you're looking to set up. So now let's take a look at the other 1-card circular line. Alrighty, so this is going to be the other 1-card play with Mathmech Circular. I'll go ahead and show you how to pull this off. Now, as I mentioned in the last combo line, this line I tend to prefer a little bit more myself because it plays a little better against stuff like Valor and Imperm and Ash Blossom, as opposed to the other line which plays a bit better against something like Nibiru. So I'm going to start by just using Cynet Mining to grab my Circular real quick here. Nope, that's Diameter. I always have to like carefully look at these two because like visually they look kind of similar at a glance. So, alright, I'm going to start by activating the Mathmech Circular's effect. Of course, I'm going to start by sending Sigma, as always as ever. I'm going to throw that in defense mode there. And then I will bring back the Mathmech Sigma in order to trigger Circular's other effect. Now, as I mentioned during the last combo, what you add off of the Circular is really going to determine which of the 1-card combo lines you do. Last time we added Superfactorial. I'm going to add Equation this time. Alright, now I'm going to actually start by going into Link Disciple, and I want to specifically use Mathmech Circular. Last time it didn't really matter which one we used, but this time it really does, because Mathmech Sigma was brought back by its own effect. It's going to get banished if it leaves the field. Now, as we talked about during the other combo line, we can circumvent this by using it as an Xyz material instead, but we do need to be mindful to not let this card go to the graveyard unless it's being detached as an Xyz material, because otherwise it's going to get banished instead. So I'm actually going to activate this Mathmech Equation I just added, bring back the Circular I just sent, and now I'm going to use that Circular once again to go for Link Devotee this time. Now since we don't have Alembertain in play yet, we actually do use Link Disciple's effect on Devotee. So this is kind of why I say this plays a little bit better against like Imperm and Valor and such, like and Ash Blossom. With the other combo, you start with Alembertain. If that gets Valored or Impermed or whatever, like you're just done. You can't do anything else for the rest of the turn. You can't do a whole lot else, to be fair, if you get Valored or Impermed or whatever here, but at the very least you have more options for like a follow-up play or something. So just put back to Cynet Mining, doesn't really matter what here. Now I'm going to get the Devotee's effect. Throw down my tokens. Alright, from there I'm going to go into Cyberse Wicckid using Link Disciple and one of my 2 tokens. And then I'm going to use my other token to actually go into Linguriboh and throw it in Cyberse Wicckid zone. This will allow me to activate the effect of Cyberse Wicckid. Just make sure you don't banish any of the Mathmech monsters that are, or the main deck monsters in your graveyard, because obviously we need to bring those back with Superfactorial. I'm just going to banish Link Disciple and get back, or rather add from my deck to my hand, a Mathmech Diameter. Now I can normal summon the Diameter and activate its effect to bring back the Circular from my graveyard. I'm just going to kind of play assuming we don't have that other Mathmech in grave. Alright, now I can use the Sigma to overlay. This is a very important step of the combo. And you only want to use 2 monsters to overlay for Alembertain here. Don't use 3. Alright, now we will activate the Alembertain effect to add a Mathmech card from our deck to our hand. So now the Sigma did go to the graveyard, that's definitely what we wanted to see, and then now we can get our Mathmech Superfactorial. Alright, we will also use the Alembertain effect to sack off the Linguriboh and bring back one of our Mathmech monsters. It doesn't super matter which one, I'll just do Diameter. And then finally, we'll use our 2 Mathmech monsters to go into IP Masquerena. You do actually want to specifically do it that way, as opposed to like having Cyberse Wicckid, IP Masquerena, and Linguriboh on your end board, because if you want to go into Heatsoul on your opponent's turn, you need to use Cyberse monsters with different attributes. And Wicckid, IP Masquerena, as well as Linguriboh, they're all dark. So we need Masquerena plus Alembertain to go into Heatsoul on our opponent's turn. But just like that last combo, we have that set up, the Heatsoul as well as another Wicckid search, and then more importantly, of course, the Mathmech Superfactorial is now all set up against our opponent as well. So again, like I said, which one card combo is going to depend on, well, which spell or trap card you add with Circular, but really the deciding factor is, do you want to play around like Nibiru more, or do you want to play around Valor slash Ash slash Imperm? I tend to prefer the latter because those are much more common, but that's just my 2 cents. You could do either way. Will result you in the same end board. It's just a matter of how you get there. So now that we've shown off some 1-card combos, I'll show you what you can do with Circular plus another card in hand. Alright, so now I'm going to show you one of the 2-card combos here. This one in particular is going to be Mathmech Diameter plus Mathmech Circular. All I did was activate Small World and Cynet Mining to set up these 2 cards in my hand with this particular hand, so that's why the hand looks a little bit smaller here. You can also ignore the Mathmech Superfactorial. This was just a leftover card from my opening hand, and we'd search it anyway, so we're just going to use Diameter and Circular here. So I will start by activating Circular's effect. Of course, as always as ever, I'm going to send the Mathmech Sigma from my deck to the graveyard. But I'm actually not going to activate Sigma's effect. I'm going to summon Diameter first and use that effect as well as the Circular effect here. Alright, now I would normally be adding the Mathmech Superfactorial from my deck to my hand off the Circular. You actually do not want to add Mathmech Equation. Add Superfactorial, but again, I already opened it in this example hand, so I just had to add the other spell card there. But for this combo, add Mathmech Superfactorial. In fact, I'll even just advise this now. The only time you really want to add Mathmech Equation off of Circular on turn 1 is if you're doing the second 1-card combo I showed you, the one that plays better around Valor, Imperm, and Ash. Any other time, you want to be adding Mathmech Superfactorial here. But I'm going to go ahead and Xyz summon for Alembertain. I'm going to want to make sure I use the Sigma as one of the materials. It doesn't really matter what the other one is, but Sigma does need to be one of the 2 materials we use to make this Alembertain. I will now activate the effect, detaching both materials to add a Mathmech card from the deck to hand. Since I already have Superfactorial and I already have summoned Diameter, the card I'm actually going to add here is Addition. You could also get Subtraction, either or would do here, so now I'm going to actually activate Sigma's effect to bring it back from the graveyard. Alright, from here I'm going to go into, let's see, let's go Link Disciple, and here, and this time we can actually use the Resurrected Sigma as a Link material because we're going to have Addition as our third Mathmech monster in graveyard. I'm going to throw the Devotee in the Disciple zone, but we're not going to sack the Devotee with the Disciple, we're going to sack it with the Alembertain. And bring back one of our Mathmech cards. Doesn't particularly matter which one here. And then of course, we do definitely want our 2 tokens here. Alright, now from here, I'm actually going to go into Splash Mage using the token of the Disciple. Normally it'd be Cyberse Wicckid, but this time it's going to be Splash Mage. Going to use the Splash Mage's effect to bring back our Mathmech Diameter. Just throw that right over here. And then we can go ahead and use the Splash Mage plus the Link token in order to make Cyberse Wicckid. Now, and I haven't summoned Mathmech Addition yet because I've been waiting until Wicckid is in play. Doesn't really matter which one gains attack, obviously, because it's turn 1. I'll throw that here, and then I get to add a follow-up Diameter off of the Cyberse Wicckid here. That's the other cool thing about Mathmech, too. In addition to, you know, doing your turn 1 plays, you will naturally always set up a turn 2 play with the Cyberse Wicckid as well. Now that we have 3 level 4 monsters in play, I can go ahead and fire off the Mathmech, Primathmech Laplacian. We can start ripping cards from our opponent's hand on the very first turn here. It will, of course, activate the effect. We even get a nice Omni Negate, although if our opponent had Disruption for this turn, they very likely would have used it already, so it doesn't really matter, actually. Alright, so we've successfully ripped 1 card from our opponent's hand, but in order to rip another, we're going to have to Superfactorial on our opponent's turn, which means we need all 3 of our Mathmech monsters in graveyard, but that's fortunately fairly easy to accomplish. I'm just going to go ahead and use Laplacian and Alembertain to send those 2 off for IP Masquerena. Now, like I said, we've got all of our Mathmechs back in our graveyard. We can just throw down the Superfactorial, and then boom, we can rip another card from our opponent's hand on the next turn. But remember, we get more than that with the Superfactorial. We also get to send a monster and potentially a spell or trap card from their side of the field to the graveyard, as well as having the Omni Negate from having used Diameter. So, there are actually a ton of different 2-card combos you can do, but I really like starting to tear cards out of my opponent's hand on the first turn. Especially if you're playing against an opponent who is disrupting you, it's not that difficult to usually be able to like still make the Laplacian on turn 1, even after they've used the disruption effect, which means they'll have even less cards to work with moving forward. You can just like start taking all of these resources from your opponent before they even have a chance to use them. There actually is another way you can start ripping cards from hand on turn 1 with a different 2-card combo. So let's go and take a look at that next. Okay, so this time around, I'm going to show you another 2-card play that involves Circular. This time we're going to use Addition or Subtraction. Either one of those extenders would do here. Funnily enough, I actually opened Circular plus Diameter, so I just use a small world to turn the Diameter into an Addition for the sake of this combo. So, we're going to start once again by activating the Circular effect. I'm going to send Sigma from the deck to the graveyard, summoning it here. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and actually bring the Sigma back from my graveyard, like so. This will trigger the Circular effect. I'll use that to add the Superfactorial from deck to hand. And then we also can just go ahead and throw down our Mathmech Addition now. Alright, we're once again going to make our Alembertain. It doesn't actually super matter like whether or not you put the Sigma back in the graveyard, but we have the ability to, so it's like there's kind of no reason not to, in my opinion. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and activate Alembertain's effect to add a Mathmech card from deck to hand. Because we haven't used our normal summon yet, I can actually just go ahead and grab the Diameter. And now I'll normal summon the Diameter, and I'm going to use that to go ahead and bring back my, either it's Sigma or Addition, doesn't really matter. Now, if you really wanted to, for whatever reason, I mean, you could just, like, make Laplacian, send a card, make IP, set Superfactorial, and there you go. But we can obviously be doing a lot better than that, so let's. I'm going to start by going for a Link Disciple here. I can use the Sigma because it wasn't brought back by its own effect, so I'll go to the graveyard. And then I will go ahead and fire off a Link Devotee as well. Alright, now let's activate Alembertain's effect, sending the Devotee. And bring back, again, doesn't particularly matter, I'll just get Addition, why not? We get our Devotee's effect. Go here, and here. Now, just like last time, I'm going to go ahead and make a Splash Mage using the token and the Disciple. I get the Splash Mage F. Again, it doesn't really matter which one I bring back. And I'm actually going to go for Cyberse Wicckid before I make the Laplacian in this case, just so I can make the Laplacian in the Wicckid zone and add another Diameter, like we've been doing. Alright, here's Laplacian, go 1, 2, and 3. Throw it right here. Doesn't really matter, we're going to link it away anyway. Alright, and then now we get both effects. I guess I'll chain block the Laplacian effect, although, again, if my opponent had a response, they definitely would have done it by now. I guess it doesn't really matter which Link monster we banish, but I usually banish Disciple and Devotee, because we're definitely not going to use either of those in any follow-up turns. Splash Mage, like, I don't know, maybe I could see a world where I bring it back with Transcode Talker and go to Accesscode, but I guess you could do that with any Link 1, to be fair. And then, just like last time, I'm just going to send both of these off for IP Masquerena to get the rest of the Mathmech cards back in my graveyard. And there you have it. There's another slightly different way to go into your turn 1 hand ripping to start doing that as early as possible. Again, like I said, there's actually a lot of different like 2-card plays you can make on turn 1. But I, for reasons I mentioned at the end of the last combo, I really like to start tearing cards out of my opponent's hand as early as possible. Alright, so I'm sure after seeing all these amazing plays that Circular can set up, you're now wondering, well, what happens if I don't open Circular? Am I just SOL? The answer is actually no. There's a lot of things you can do without Circular. Now, even though we have a Cynet Mining in this hand is otherwise a good way of demonstrating what else you can do. Now, to be fair, if you don't open Circular, you do often need, like, generally 2 Mathmech monsters, like any Mathmech monster in one of your extenders, Addition, Subtraction. Sigma can also special itself from hand with its effect, as well as Graveyard, so keep that in mind as well. But yeah, again, even though we have Cynet Mining, I'll show you what you can do with, like, this is really any level 4 monster, plus what, like, you know, Addition or Subtraction, like one of your extenders there. So I'm going to start by normal summoning this Mathmech Multiplication, then use the Subtraction effect in order to special summon itself. I'm going to overlay my 2 level 4 monsters into Alembertain. And of course, if we did not open with Circular, what are we going to do with Alembertain? Why, search it, of course, because yeah, even if we didn't open it, Circular is too powerful to ignore. So I'm going to add the Circular from deck to hand, and I will activate its effect. Now, I know I said that, like, almost every time you want to send a Sigma. This is actually one of those times where I don't want to send a Sigma. I actually want to put a Diameter in my graveyard. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to set up the Omni Negate with the Diameter during my opponent's turn. So I'm going to activate Alembertain's effect. I'm going to sacrifice itself. And I'm going to bring back one of my Mathmech monsters. It doesn't super matter which one. I'll just get Diameter. Why not? Because now I want Circular's effect in order to add the Superfactorial. So now I have Superfactorial, and I have the ability to set my graveyard up. So we've definitely done that bit already, but we could definitely still be doing more. I'm going to go for Link Disciple and Devotee now. Let's throw that right over there. And this time I will use the Disciple to sack the Devotee, because obviously my Alembertain's already gone. I'll just put back the Cynet Mining so we can fully pretend like we never had it. Alright, now I will use the Devotee's effect. Throw a token here, and a token here. And now I can go into the Cyberse Wicckid. Boom. And then we'll go into Linguriboh. So yeah, you don't get the IP set up with this, like, particular play here, but we got the Superfactorial set up. That's the most important part. But on top of that, we also get to set up a Diameter search off the Wicckid, and then, you know, having Linguriboh on your end board is definitely not the end of the world, because the ability to negate trap cards is fairly relevant, especially in the mirror match, which is becoming increasingly common. As I'm sure those of you who are playing with, or even out with, even if you're not playing this deck, which I don't really know why you're watching this far into the combo guide if you're not playing this deck, but yeah, even if you're not playing this deck, you've seen a lot of Mathmechs around, so I guess to be fair, it might be useful just to know what they do either way. But in any case, yeah, that's an example of a play you can make with a hand that does not open Circular. So, like, I know it might have seemed like the way I was talking, like, oh, if you open Circular, you're golden, but if not, but no, even if you don't, you're still usually fine. Mainly just involves getting 2 level 4 monsters on board to summon Alembertain, and then use that to search for Circular. So there are all the combos that I wanted to show off, but there's many more as well that you can make with this deck. But again, these are the main ones that I wanted to show off. The 1-card plays, ripping cards from your opponent's hand on turn 1, and then what to do if you don't open Circular. So now that we've covered that, let's just go ahead and move now to the outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot, as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Hexlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.